Hi, it's Iona. Welcome to part 4 of my no buy year. I am in month 3 of my no buy year now, so I'm going to give you a little recap of what has happened so far on this month. This month, I decluttered my whole flat. It felt amazing. It was so good. If you haven't watched the video with the clutter coach Kim, then I highly recommend that you go watch that because it is fabulous. It's so good. It really inspired me to declutter a lot of my flat and realize what I already had so that I don't have to buy any more stuff. Not only did I declutter, but I sold lots of stuff. I got rid of things on Gumtree and on Vinted, and I've made about £200 this last month just on selling things on Gumtree, Facebook Marketplace, and on Vinted, which has actually been really fun. It feels better than actually taking stuff to the charity shop. Obviously, charity shops are amazing, they do an amazing job, but I feel like sometimes many of our items can sit at the back of a charity shop in the cupboard or in storage and even sometimes get sent to recycling centres. Whereas if I sell on Facebook Marketplace, on Gumtree or Vinted, there's a person who wants that thing. They'll come to me and they want the thing, right? So it just feels more satisfying knowing that my items are going to someone who wants it specifically. I felt so relieved and satisfied, and also like I was making successful decisions, or I was successfully making decisions, because one of the things that Kim and I spoke about in the last video was how clutter is just unmade decisions. So it actually really helped my confidence in making decisions. And of course, I'm a confidence coach, and making decisions has always been something I've struggled with over the years. So decluttering and doing all this work around the flat, pulling stuff out and making decisions really helped my confidence. It also helped me to peel off layers of old beliefs and old programs that I was holding on to, especially around lack, obligation to people, hurt, wounds, sentimental clothing, right? Clothing was, and especially things that I've made myself and items that I've worn on special occasions, has been really sentimental and was really challenging for me to get rid of. But knowing that somebody wants that thing, that they can wear it, felt so much better than it sitting in the back of a cupboard for years, for decades. So I'm really happy that I got rid of lots of stuff. And although it was difficult at the time to let go in that moment of making that decision, once somebody had actually wanted it, once someone came on and a lot of my sentimental stuff I've now sold, it makes me feel really happy and grateful and good that it's gone to someone who actually wants it, instead of me just like throwing it out. I've had a few wobbles this month because I haven't been able to dissociate by spending. I haven't been able to use spending as a crutch to fall down onto when I felt emotionally triggered. It meant that I had to work through a lot more stuff, and it meant that I had to face a lot more stuff. A few of my boundaries were crossed this month, and that brought up a lot of things that helped me work through. Because I didn't have spending to fall back on, it meant that I had to face it. You know, like if someone had crossed my boundary or triggered me in some way before, I would have just went in on a spending binge, and bought myself things to help myself feel better. But I'm not doing that anymore. I can't do that anymore. It's not healthy. So when these things happened, it really made me go inwards and do the inner work, which can be painful inner work. So that was good. Obviously not at the time, because it hurt emotionally. It hurt at the time to go back in there and really do the work, feeling work. But I have to say I do feel a lot better for it. These feelings that came up, there was a lot of feeling unsafe to be seen, feeling not good enough, feeling unworthy, feeling shame, bad, wrong, flawed. And these are all things that I'm gradually working through. I really, really wanted to spend. I really had so many urges to go on and just spend, but having the money in the bank felt more relief. Having the money in the bank was more relieving, actually. The knowing that the money was there felt much better than the feeling of going and spending it in the long term. Absolutely. I also feel like I've been using spending as a way to avoid meeting my emotional needs, which is what I'm going to talk about in a moment. I feel like feeling safe, hoarding and collecting is a safety protection, right? It's just a need. going without, experiencing a lack and being conditioned to lack is all focus on the feelings that there's never going to be enough and we're going to run out, and that we have to have and hold things just in case. That actually it's a protection system. The emotional needs, we have 9 main emotional needs: control, security, attention, meaning and purpose, community, privacy, intimacy, achievement, and status. When I am spending, when I am doing anything addictive, I understand that I have emotional needs that are not being met. I'm trying to meet these emotional needs and soothe myself by doing the thing, right? By, instead of being with myself and supporting myself through that emotional pain, giving myself what I need emotionally, I turn to an addiction. And this might be true for many people who experience addictions. It's really because we have an emotional need that we're not meeting and that's not being met. So, control. The first one I want to talk about, the first emotional need I want to talk about is control. And I grew up in quite an unpredictable and stressful environment. I rarely had control. Other people had control over my emotions, over my spending. And I found that spending and hoarding is a way that I could gain control back into my life. Like I could control how much money I spend. I can almost, but then also at the same time I can't control it at all, right? Because it's very spontaneous and very like addictive and very impulsive. So what I feel like I have control in, I actually don't have control in at all. Another emotional need is security. And I've lived in rented flats my whole adult life. I moved away from home when I was 17, and I have lived with partners, roommates, and by myself and my cat for most of that time. I'm now 38. I'll be 38 this year, 37, so that's 20 years I've been living away from home. I've lived away from home more than I lived at home. Many times in the last 20 years, I've actually lost my living space through evictions or whatever. And having a lot of stuff, I've kept a lot of stuff and I've moved. I remember one time I moved once a year for like 10 years. It was very stressful. And I was constantly just moving all of this stuff around. Having all that stuff meant that no matter what happened or where I was surrounded by items that were familiar to me and that made me feel safe. So that's why I was dragging all this stuff around with me, because it made me feel safe. It made me feel secure. It was like a security blanket. It brought me a sense of security. Nobody could tell me what I could or could not have. Going back to that thing of control again. Like, no one could tell me what I could or could not have. It was my space. It was my security space. It felt safe. Attention, right? Attention is an emotional need. I feel like wearing and owning nice things helped me to feel seen, validated, and gave me a sense of attention, right? Made me feel like I could be seen. Positive attention, which I felt was pretty scarce growing up. I felt like the only attention I ever really got was negative attention. I felt like I rarely got any positive attention. The next emotional need is meaning and purpose. Until recently, I couldn't really find any meaning or purpose in my life. It was always tied to what other people wanted me to do. It was always tied to me seeking acceptance, praise, and validation from other people. My worthiness was subject to approval from other people. So when spending and hoarding and collecting all this stuff, I was living up to an image or an identity that I thought was my purpose, but actually wasn't my true purpose. And in my life growing up, in my family especially growing up, image was everything, right? It was all about the image, rarely about how you felt. It was usually always about image. So I felt like I had to maintain this image in order to be worthy of attention, of acceptance, of love. So that gave my life purpose and meaning. And actually now I understand that my life's purpose and my life's meaning is to feel content, is to feel emotionally well, to feel emotionally good, and to help others. But the only way I can help others is by helping myself first. The next emotional need is community. We all need community. Even though we're individual human beings, it's really important that we have a sense of community, and aspiring to be part of a community, but again not really knowing who I am or who I was. I felt unsafe to be seen. I felt not good enough just as I was, because fundamentally deep down I felt broken, flawed, bad and wrong. I felt shame. I felt ashamed of myself. I felt like I had to be a human doing and not a human being. I need all this stuff. I need all of this stuff, and I need to spend, I need to get more in order to feel worthy. I need to fix myself. I need to get more stuff in order to fix myself and be liked and accepted in order to be liked and accepted by others. But now I understand, and now I'm working on learning and finding who my true self is and who I actually like, what I actually like and what I actually want to do in life, which is fun, but also kind of challenging, especially when you've grown up in an environment where it's all about what the other people want to do. The next emotional need is privacy. So my possessions and having ownership of things with sentimental value, no one can take these things away from me, right? I have to make the decision to get rid of it, which is why I wasn't making any decisions to get rid of anything. I was just adding more, simply adding more things because I need more things in order to feel good enough and feel worthy, feel acceptable. I was also very private as a child. I kept myself to myself. I didn't feel safe to be seen. I struggled with low confidence. I struggled with low self-esteem. I struggled with putting myself out there. I struggled with standing up for myself. I was quiet and very particular about what I let into my life. I had trouble trusting and feeling safe around other people. So I was a very private person, and not because I wanted to be, but because I had to be, because it felt like that was the safest thing that I could do. And actually now that I've had a clear out of my belongings, and I've actually I've sent a lot of my stuff. I sold over 40 items of clothing on Vinted in the last month, and a lot of the stuff I made myself, right? So that's a part of my soul, part of my creativity, part of my soul that I've sent out into the world. And at first that felt really scary. Even though I've been putting my work out there for years, it still feels scary because these are things that I've made for myself with my own tastes. And for a very long time, I didn't believe that my taste was good. I learned from a young age that I didn't have good taste, or that what I liked wasn't good enough. Privacy, in terms of privacy, putting myself out there by sending all of these parts of my soul out into the world, it felt really it felt difficult and challenging at first, but actually, yeah, it feels good. It feels really nice. It feels really I feel more confident now. The next one is intimacy, and I felt like I've been protecting myself from emotional injury and pain from loss, rejection and abandonment using inanimate objects, using stuff and using spending. These inanimate objects cannot reject me, right? They cannot abandon me. And actually some of the things that I was experiencing emotionally when I was getting rid of my items was rejection and abandonment. Because from giving this thing away, it was almost as if I was rejecting it, which meant it was rejecting me, which is nonsense. I understand that logically, but emotionally it felt very challenging. When I got rid of things in the past, I felt like they had rejected me or abandoned me. My things can't leave me. I want my things, so that means that they want me back. I want my things, so that must mean that they want me back. Perhaps this is something that people who experience collecting a lot of items or hoarding a lot of things perhaps feel, that it's about abandonment. We've felt abandoned in the past, so therefore we have to have things because our things can't abandon us. They can't grow legs and walk out the door. My childhood toys, for example, I loved my childhood toys, my teddies and things, and my dolls. But as a child, and I believed that they loved me back, right? Especially after watching Toy Story. I believe that they wanted me back. I also noticed that I'm using my belongings to fix or to give relief for my abandonment wounds. My belongings are mirroring my abandonment wound in that way, in that sense. The next one is achievement, and I could say, look what I've got, look what I can get. especially in this society where our worth is very much tied to achievement and what we can do and what we can have instead of who we are as human beings and who we are as people. One of the things that I've been working on is my values. What do I value in life? And working on that every day to come back into alignment with my values. What do I value as a person? What do I value about myself? And living in integrity with my values. And I want to be able to value who I am as a person. Yes, I want to experience beautiful, nice things, but I also want to experience contentment and joy and love and worthiness and feeling good enough. This feeling like our worth is tied to our achievements and what we can do and have is conditional worthiness, right? I'm only worthy if I have the thing. I'm only worthy if I do the thing. And that's how I felt when I was spending money. I was unworthy, and I could only be worthy when I get the thing or when I have the thing or when I do the thing. The worthiness never comes. I'm chasing my tail constantly. If I'm not worthy, and only be worthy when I get the thing and I'm still not worthy until I decide that I'm worthy, regardless of having the thing or not. The next one is status, which I also tie to the achievement part. So having the things, collecting the things, spending the money, it's all about status. It's all about what I believe I am in terms of society and my place in society. We are all sensory beings. We see with our eyes, and growing up in an environment where perfectionism, I had certain image to uphold. I had to do certain things, or certainly it was presented that I had to do certain ways. I had to look a certain way. It was very much about image and not about how you feel. Status was a big thing growing up, and when we went through some challenging times in my family growing up, when we experienced some adversity, this really affected my parents, affected my family members, because it meant that their status was lowered. And because it happened when I was really young, it's affected me, it's shaped my life, and it's made me very afraid of failure, when actually failure is a really important part of life. Making mistakes and failing is really important because it's a really powerful learning opportunity for us. And I feel like status is about how I feel about myself, right? Which is actually self-esteem. Self-esteem is how I feel about myself. Self-concept is what I think about myself. And my self-confidence is the energy that I show up with myself in the world. So when I think of status, actually, when I tap into the feeling of status, it actually makes me feel of being grounded, right? It doesn't make me think of, it used to make me think about somebody who had money, who had lots of beautiful things, who were in a big house with a nice car and a husband or a wife or a dog and the kids and the stuff, right? It was someone who was successful in their job. It was someone who was successful in the community. But actually, when I think about it now, when I tap into status now, it makes me feel grounded. It makes me think about feeling grounded, feeling like content. Yes, being a pillar in the community, but that doesn't necessarily mean having stuff. It means being a pillar, being a rock for other people, being someone that people can rely on, being someone people can trust, being somebody that people can feel comfortable around, being somebody who can help others to elevate, but also help others and just be with others when they're not feeling good, not having to say things or do things. And notice how I'm saying the word be and not the word do. When I tap into status as an emotional need, status feels like being grounded. And the work that I have done in this past month, I'm feeling a little bit more grounded than I was certainly before, because I've gone through some emotional turmoil, some challenging emotions this month, going through all of my belongings, decluttering, having a few moments, having a few wobbles of my boundaries being like rocked. Having the, like in Jurassic Park where the raptors scale the fences, right? I've certainly had a few raptors scaling my fences this past month. But this has been such a powerful month for me. And of course, it's the equinox now, it's the spring equinox, and I'm really excited about summer. I'm excited about making more clothes using the fabric that I already have. Now that I have all that space in my wardrobe, it's going to be freaking awesome. Thank you so much for joining me. If you are interested in trying a no buy year, look at my previous videos, and I hope you have a beautiful rest of your week, your weekend, wherever you're watching this, and I'll see you very soon for the next update. Lots of love. Bye.